Thank you for listening to the Content Magazine podcast, Conversations with Silicon Valley's Creatives. I'm Daniel Garcia, your host and the cultivator of Content Magazine, published by SV Creates.
Welcome to the Content Magazine podcast. My name is David Valdespino, the developer of Content Magazine, and today we have two very special guests. They're both local musicians, staples of the community. They're both alumni of Content Magazine Sight and Sound, and they are here together. They've joined forces on a band project, but I want to be sure to kind of set the stage on previous projects and kind of where we got to now. So I have a couple little spiels that I wrote out to introduce
I love
here.
spiels.
Spiels are great.
So we have Fay Donovan, who is a Japantown-based curl consultant, and a former frontwoman for the Oakland-based band and musical project Ghost in the City. That project was described in a 2019 article of Content Magazine as a brooding musical stew of soulful, jazzy, and electronic components with spectral grooves, caressing textures, and luminescent melodic hooks. So that's Ghost in the City.
Ooh, and that was pre-Chat GPT, so that's authentic, you know?
And
That's real.
And then here we have Mark Arroyo, a guitarist and founding member of the Mark Arroyo Trio, and a regular collaborator with Jonathan Borka's jazz and poetry combo, The Francis Experience.
Yep.
The trio was founded in 2009. It was an improvisational ensemble that crafted interpretations of jazz standards and pop tunes. While closely aligned with the jazz tradition, their sound included effects and tones that would often fall more in line with indie and alternative rock. And that was from a 2017 issue of Content Magazine as well. So I just wanted to lay the groundwork here. But you both have brought your musical prowess together, joined forces on a new project called MindFi.
That's right.
MindFi,
Yeah.
So I guess my first question, since I've gone through the previous projects, how would you describe MindFi and the sound that you guys are working with?
Ooh,
That's a great question.
that is a question that comes, it gets a different answer at every show.
Yeah.
MindFi was a name that Kia had been holding on to for a while, and it's basically when you're at one of our shows, you know, we're just all tapping in to the same network, you know, like the Wi-Fi for your mind, I think
That's right.
was the description Kia first gave me. It's like, oh, you know, that's great. It's MindFi. And, you know, we had come from performing in bands and lots of different bands and having lots of different members, and the problems that you run into when you've got multiple people, there's multiple schedules, the logistics of people getting to places at different times or not getting to places when they're supposed to. And we wanted to just do less of that and more of just music.
Yeah.
You know? And so we get to really focus on the music since it's just guitar and vocal.
Yeah.
You know?
So it's a two-piece band. You're playing guitar. You're doing vocals.
That's right.
Y'all have been together for about a year now, performing
Which is a trip.
live.
Yes.
The kind of staple element of MindFi so far are Wednesday night performances that take place in Japantown at your shop, the Curl Consultant. How did that kind of come about, that origin of performing live and kind of inviting some friends to come and listen?
Yeah, you know, in building this new project, we knew that we wanted to effectively seed things with the people that were closest to us and that we felt were really culture bearers in our area. So we thought, okay, I've already got this salon space. How do we use this in a creative way? And how do we strategically invite homies that are hopefully not only going to appreciate the project, but also are going to tell other people that would appreciate the project. And so we wanted to do that in a way that felt organic and also allowed us to have, you know, we old, so we want to control over stuff, right?
We do.
And
we do.
You know, I mean, like really to Mark's point though, we've been in projects where when you have a lot of humans involved, just inherently that control is distributed amongst many people, right? But by being able to say, hey, this is where we want it to be, these are the humans we want in the room. This is what we want the room to look like. This is what we want the vibe to be this week. We could really curate everything and hopefully position ourselves so that when we started to, record music and release music and push that out to the broader community, we would feel like we had a really strong foundation and hopefully even some regulars at the show, some fans, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of it too is just going back to the control of it, is wanting to control the whole experience and give the people at the show, our listeners, concert goers, those are the typical descriptions of people at the show, but we want them to tap in with us. People don't get to experience very intimate live shows as much as they think they do, because it's so easy to pull up a video and experience music that way. But being in the room with us, hearing all of the mistakes, hearing the breathing, hearing my pick hit the floor after I hit my guitar too hard, it's like, okay, so the song's not gonna stop, but now I have to play this with just my fingers because I can't pick that up until after the song is over. It's unedited and it's raw, but it's also like for you.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that we wanted to do is bring people into the space.
Yeah.
And we call the Wednesday night event space because, at least the way I think about it, you're in a space, we're sharing the space, but I'm also trying to take you to a different space with the music,
Yeah.
If it's outer space or just
A different dimension.
inner space. Yes.
Yes.
Just dimensions.
Yeah, I think to paint a picture for folks that are listening too, I've been lucky enough to check out these shows. It's in the heart of Japantown, right on Jackson Street. It's salon converted into a musical experiment.
Yes.
I mean, I've seen 10 to 20 people there, I think, on the big times. And there's ice and drinks in the in the hair wash station.
Bowl, yes,
but y'all perform in front of the window, and I think kind of part of that organic nature of it, you have people walking by, you have people looking in and being really curious about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in my mind, it kind of creates like this juxtaposition of like the control that you've had to kind of curate the space, but then also kind of like the organic nature of what's going on. And I think to go into my next question, I think it's really interesting that control is kind of like the basis of it, because both of y'all have really interesting stories, which people can check out in your previous articles, about, even how you got involved with Ghost in the City originally was very impromptu, jumping on stage, kind of an impromptu audition.
Yeah.
You described even Mark Arroyo Trio as kind of the name coming out of just a necessity, right? You had some folks that got invited to do a show and you kind of came together. So in that sense, what went into y'all coming together? Like, how did you meet, and how did you know that you wanted to work on this thing together? And can you kind of share a little bit of that story?
Yeah. Well, thanks, Content Magazine. That's how we met.
Yeah, that's content.
Yeah, we met because of a content show. Gosh, at this point, very early in content, like in retrospect, I didn't realize how close to the genesis of content
early.
It was.
This had to have been the 2017 end of the year Headley Club pickup party, and the trio was performing.
And I was there solo.
Yeah.
And I didn't, I was new to the city, still relatively new to the city, and didn't have an artistic community that I had developed, but I was really trying. And I still remember going to this show by myself and being like the anxiety, thinking like, I don't know anybody. I have to be personable, but not too weird, lest I scare other people off. And Mark, I, heard him and saw him play and, effectively waited until the end of the set and walked up and said, "You're really great. Do you want to be my friend?" Which for some people I'm sure would be terribly off-putting, but thank goodness for Mark, he understood what I was doing in that moment. But really, I mean, I really did feel like I saw him while he played, and I saw an expansive human being that I knew I had to connect with, right? And when you spot something unique and beautiful, you have to at least shoot your shot, right? So I feel like I shot my shot with friendship on this one. And at the time, we both had our own projects. We both were, very involved in other things that took up the bulk of our time. But I think for the duration of our friendship, we've identified that at some point in time, we would form a project together.
Yeah.
Right? So it was just a matter of logistics and life converging in a way that allowed us to have space.
Yeah, you got it.
To actually create together, right?
Yeah.
So when the timing worked out, it was like, oh, cool. Well, we wanted to do this for ages, so this is the appropriate iteration. Right?
Yeah, it was one of those things where we became friends real quick. You know, I saw how much she enjoyed the show. I was like, man, you're really enjoying this. It's so great. Like, yes, let's be friends. And then, we get to learn more about each other. It's like, oh, let's do music. But it's one of those typical conversations like, yeah, let's do music, but you don't do music. You run into each other on gigs, you're friends, you run into each other on the street, but you're never doing music. But you're talking about doing music. You want to do music. It's always just an idea. It's always something in the back of your mind that would be really cool to do because what this other person is going to bring. You know what level you both want to be at, what level you operate at. But then post-COVID, there was time. The Mark Arroyo trio was not booking many gigs because there weren't a lot of gigs. So there was time. There was the time to work on new music, and it just worked out in our schedule. And it's like, hey, you want to do music now?
Yeah.
Like, we have time.
Yeah.
We can do this. And there's the salon. We can play in the salon. And we were able to make it work.
Yeah.
We
It
went
just
from
felt
this
like it
idea.
was right there for us.
That
just had to pick
we
it up,
always talk about, like, yeah, one day we'll do music. One day we'll do music. One day, to like, oh, we have
One day
rehearsal
is now.
every week.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
we have original music. Oh, we have a great set. And that all comes from content. Because Content Magazine does this party. I'm playing, she's going, and now MindFi presents Space every last Wednesday of the month. It's like, wow,
Yeah.
that's great.
We
So,
need it.
I'm curious, kind of in relation to this,
Yeah.
because you applied for and received Jazz Aid Fund from
That's
San
right.
Jose Jazz
That's right.
last year. I think that was 2024.
That's right, yeah.
What kind of role did that play in this project, and what opportunities that opened? Was that like before y'all really started collaborating? Was that kind of like a genesis moment, or was that like a development moment?
I feel like it was an accelerator
It's definitely
moment,
definitely
right?
an
Because the
accelerator.
pieces were already in place. We had already been in conversation. We had already been sitting down together, and it was like, oh, and now somebody is distinctly asking us
Yeah.
to create a piece together. Great.
Yeah.
We have everything structurally ready to make this
Yeah, we had been
into a
rehearsing
tangible thing. Yeah.
since the summer before. So what is that, 23?
Yeah.
So we started, oh wow, 2 years?
I know.
Yeah, so we started rehearsing in that summer, 2023.
Just in an attempt to be prepared so that when opportunities arose,
Yeah,
we
and
could hit the ground running, right?
we were trying to figure out what we are.
Yeah, what's
And,
the sound?
Yeah, what do we sound like? What are we doing? It's just you and me.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of
So-
those rehearsals were a little bit of playing, but a lot of talking,
Yeah.
right?
Just trying to figure
and
out, like-
ideating, yeah, on how
And
how
listening.
how
listening.
should
It's
this
like,
be?
hey, how about this song? Listen to this. How about this? And it's like, okay, what can we do with that?
And did all of that take place in the shop also?
In the salon.
salon? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 And
I-
it's funny. Sometimes guests are like, I do have to laugh when I make the joke at the salon a lot that sometimes I think that guests figure that when I'm done cutting their hair, I just go live in the bathroom and I don't do anything else. I'm like, I'm not a golem that lives like, here in the salon. But I think it's important for me to let folks know that, like, hey, you see that microphone over there? You see that amp? This place is more than one thing, right? At 6 p.m., I will convert it into the following. And people are like, oh my goodness, I had no idea you could do that with a salon. It's like, baby, you can do whatever you want if you're paying rent, right? And following the rules effectively in the lease. So, I feel eternally grateful to have the physical space to be able to be safe and comfortable to create art.
Yeah.
Whatever that art is on that day, right?
Well, I think to add just a little bit of texture to the Jazz Aid Fund for folks that don't know, right? So it's a grant opportunity that San Jose Jazz offers.
Yeah.
Folks apply, and then they select folks to create new work. So what did you apply with? Like, what did you submit? Like, what songs did you kind of present for that portion? Was it something that you both recorded, or was it?
So my memory could be serving me incorrectly, but I just remember being contacted and saying, hey, we would like you to, we would love for you to be a part of this cohort, which was phenomenal.
Yeah, and you'd performed previously around.
Right, and so I'd been singing with Ghosts in the City for 11, 12-ish years at that point, but had been based in Oakland, right? And so it was really, I felt really affirmed in receiving that grant because it said, hey, you're not just an Oakland artist, you are a San Jose member of this community, and we recognize you for that. So for me, it was like, okay, immediate contact Mark. This is the two of us, right? This is what I wanted to put forth as my project that I was driving, right?
Yeah.
Which for me was also very important, even though I had a very visible presence in all of the bands that I'd been a part of over the years. I didn't feel like I had necessarily a ton of autonomy in those projects to select what I wanted to be involved in, who I wanted to bring into the project, how that should be presented, how I should be communicated with, right? So receiving the Jazz Aid Award was an awesome opportunity to say like, hey, I'm gonna take the reins, let's actually produce this and also make music that feels authentic to where I am at now.
Yeah.
Right? It's a very different sound, lyrically it's different, but also feels very aligned with what we were trying to produce.
So going into that process, defining the sound, y'all are hanging out, listening to music, talking, discussing. Where did it land? Because, I mean, oddly enough, the sound of kind of both of your projects prior to this, they're not totally dissimilar, right? Like the kind of effects and kind of the jazzy nature of it. But when somebody goes to space on Wednesdays, they hear a wide range of covers and originals that are kind of portrayed in different ways. So how did y'all start landing on that sound?
A lot of it kind of comes down to how I had always approached covers with the Mark Arroyo trio. I wanted to use songs as a base, and I can even bring it back further than that. When I was first learning how to play guitar and learning songs, it was a lot of practice, a lot of studying, a lot of listening, and then I could do it. And then the next step was, okay, well, how do I write my own songs? And I started writing my own songs by just kind of trying to rewrite other people's songs. If that meant trying it in different keys or trying chord progressions with different sounds, a lot of that kind of just was how I built the sound that I have today, from when I was 13 years old. It's like, what happens if I play it like this? What happens if I play it like this? What happens if I take this chord out and replace it with this chord? So a lot of it is just like, what if, but in terms of sound. And does it sound good? Does it feel good? And then it's just me. It's just me and the guitar. I need to create as much sound as possible for whoever's playing with me so that they're supported harmonically, supported musically. And in MindFi, we were very conscious about this being Mark and Kia, vocal and guitar first. You know, what can we do? What do we do well, and how can we get as much sound out of this as possible? You know, and so I'll get an idea, just any random part of the day, for a song, and then it's a text message or it's a recording or a phone call. It's like, hey, what do you think about this song? Okay, yeah, let's do it. Okay, cool. I'm gonna record it. I'm gonna send it to you. Check it out.
And then we're gonna noodle on it.
Yeah, and so you know, it starts as a question on my end, because I'll hear something. It's like, oh, what if we do this? Like, one of the latest things we've added to our set is a song by Depeche Mode that I heard a version of by Vernon Reid, guitar player and founder of Living Colour. He had his own band and did a version of this song. So I kind of took some of the ideas in that version and tried to apply it to just a guitar, because I think in his version it's a 4-piece. I think it's guitar, bass, drums, keyboard.
Yeah.
Here it's just guitar.
Yeah.
You know, so I need not just as much sound, but as much space as I can provide, because I can't get in the way of the vocal. You know, I can't overplay and just put Kia on top because it's just messy. But I can't leave the vocal unsupported because then there's nothing happening.
Yeah.
So it's just trying to find ways to voice chords, add effects to give the music a body.
Totally.
You know, and then on top we have the vocal performance.
And I think that like dynamic interplay and being very attuned to one another all of the time allows us to, I think, with just the two of us, produce like hopefully very sonically like comprehensive music.
Yeah.
Right? Where you might think like, oh, it's just two people, but I always kind of want people to show up and say like, did that feel like two people?
Totally.
Yeah, I don't think it felt like just two people, right? That felt like sometimes multitudes, right? Because that's what effectively we all hold, but in a way, by having so many humans on stage, sometimes I think we lose the nuance of being able to really see how comprehensive a single individual can be sonically, right? When there's just so many things going on, right? So this in a way forces the listener to really be more present with the music, right? Yeah. That's the hope.
Well, that's like a really interesting challenge so far as being two people.
Yeah.
Sometimes that kind of control kind of leaves so much open space to kind of fill in.
Yeah.
But I think unless folks go and check it out, I mean, luckily we're going to have y'all do a little performance for us. We're super excited about that, so people will get a taste of what's going on. But until you see it, it's hard to kind of like conceptualize. Mm-hmm. But that it seems like that's kind of a cornerstone of this project. Mm-hmm. So there's no intention of bringing in alternative or additional instrumentalists or musicians or intention, right? Like anything's possible, but
if the music calls for it,
sure,
then you know we take that step, and that's a discussion that we've had. We like the duo format. Mm-hmm. We logistically, it's something that makes it very easy. You know, I mean, we rehearse every week. Show, no show. We're getting together every week because we want to make sure that we're keeping ourselves to the standard that we want. Mm-hmm. Kia had mentioned that she really enjoyed this setting because we were able to keep each other accountable, you know, because it's just the two of us, you know. Like, we'll go back and do something when we hear the other person make a mistake. It's like, hey, hold on, we got to do that again. And it keeps the music tight. You know, we're not waiting until we have a show and then just preparing for the show. We're just always prepared for. I mean, because I don't think about this as just a band. You know, I mean, this is very much, you know, what our whole friendship is about and what we wanted from the beginning. It's like we want to be in a situation where we can make music together, and we're able to do that now. We're able to do these shows. MindFi has a logo. MindFi has stickers. MindFi is like, it's a real thing.
Photo shoot.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got promo pictures that came out so fantastic.
Thanks for Bradley.
Exactly.
Thanks, Ben
Thank you,
Henderson.
Thank you, Ben. Yeah, for
Right,
the,
and
like,
also the
pictures.
people that we've involved in our project, also we're featuring content, right? So
Yeah.
again, it's that network of identifying individuals who are doing what we find to be exceptional work and saying, hey, how can we make you a part of this project so
Yeah.
that we have a little bit of your shine? You know,
Yeah,
you're
'cause,
involved.
I mean, it's content, it's community, it's collaboration, and it's just so great that we get to be a part of it, because I think a lot of times you just go through life, get through your job, get through the day job, get through all of the stuff you need to go through, and then maybe at the end of the day you find a little bit of time to get back to being an artist. And we're really lucky in the sense that, yeah, we go through that day like that, but then we get to create our art together, and we've been able to bring in our friends, our colleagues, you know, to help us grow that art into something that was just an idea to, you know, MindFi.
And I think that also, just as somebody who makes art all day for a living, but art in a different context, it's been very, I feel like valuable is like not even, like it doesn't articulate how important it is to my survival in order to be able to have different avenues of art to fulfill me, right? Because I think there, you know, sometimes is a misconception that like if you make art for a living, it's like, oh, that's fun and it's cool and it's, you just do whatever you want whenever you want, and it's like, no, that's a job as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
It's not always
so-
fun.
Yeah,
It's not. It's not
and
always
also
fun.
there's an element of, you know, I'm very grateful for the work that I do, but also you're doing art within the constraints of other people's artistic sensibilities, right? And so you're also fulfilling someone else's creative brief all day, right? So being able to sweep up some hair, sit down in the chair, in the throne that everybody else gets to sit in all day, and then be like, no, this time is for me, right? And for Mark, and for us to decompress and be ourselves in this space, that's been invaluable.
It's a code switch.
Yeah, 100%.
is
100%.
crazy, right? You know?
Yes.
When-
Yes.
I think that's something that really kind of comes through going to those Wednesday shows
Yeah.
is kind of that the curation process, but doing it for the love of it and doing it for the community that's around you. I mean, it kind of conjures different thoughts of like where else music can be performed out of the context of like for profit or capitalism or money, right? Like, because so often things are produced for like what's the next thing, right? Like how can I do this? But I mean, y'all are practicing and performing for those Wednesdays
Because we love it.
the last Wednesday of the month
That's
to,
right.
to perform in community. And so
Yeah.
it really kind of gives those more like religious institutions like at church or like, you know, kids that used to sing together as like a hobby and an outlet for creative expression. So I think that's really cool. But I think it also kind of not begs the question, I think that's a little bit much, but like, I mean, what does future progression look like for you? Because we still are in kind of that context of everybody wants to know, oh, what's the next show that you're playing, or when are you going to do this, or when are you going to do that?
The next things, well, I actually, before we get into that, I
Yeah.
want to circle back to what your original question was. It's like, are we going to add more people? If the music calls for it, if we hit the limit of what we can do, just the two of us, then yeah, we'll look to bring in more. In a recording sense, you know, the sky's the limit because, you know, you're just able to add tracks. But our focus has been the live performance, I think, from the beginning, because it's easier. My background in live performance goes back over 30 years. I haven't not been in a band since I was 13, you know, so it's just always about being on stage and doing a show and going to a show. For me, it's because like you get to the show, you do the show, the show's done. That's it. You know, I think sometimes when you're in a recording environment or recording situation, it never ends. You're always going to tinker. You're always going to try to do it again, do it better, and you don't get closure from the experience. You know, maybe eventually you'll get the recording out of it, but then you'll always nitpick. It's like, that could have been better.
I mean, but to that point, one of the positive things that stood out to me is our ability working together to produce content without belaboring it so much that it never comes out, right? As somebody who's also been in projects for, 25 plus years of my life, there's a lot of great stuff that I've created that has never seen the light of day because I didn't have enough of a say to push it out, or because somebody was so hyper fixated on the various elements of the music that they never could move past that self-evaluation, right? So when we think about what is next, one of the things that we're working on is recording in the space with the music and tools that we have in a way that we want to feel representative of the music and that feels like you are authentically in the space with us, that we can then start to push out to our friends in the music community, right? All of our friends that DJ, all of our friends that have reach, right? I definitely feel like in the way that for many years before MindFi was a thing, I was thinking about what the project would be. I've been thinking about who do I want to open for, right? What types of events do I want to play? What stages do I want to see myself on, right? And then it's almost a reverse engineering of how do we make our way to that position, right? I feel like I know you probably feel the same way. I've been really lucky to open for or be on stage with musicians that I really respect. And so as we've been planning how we want to approach the growth of the band, it's again very strategic in terms of we only want to take the right gigs. We only want to take things that we feel confident are navigating us to the right strategic places that we want to be. Yeah. Right.
And
so that's I think what we're it's that
on our end
that we're working on now. Those are the building blocks, right?
Since we have been doing music for a long time. We've done performances, big and small, multiple times over the years. This isn't necessarily the same mindset that we brought in when we started MindFi. One of the things that we really enjoy about having the control, having the space, and being able to bring the people into spaces, we do our shows on our own terms. We're not always needing to hunt down shows and try to get on and hope that people think that we're good enough to be on their stage. We know what we're bringing onto a stage, and we're lucky enough to have our own stage. So we're bringing people in. Instead of hoping somebody puts us on. That's something that we were very deliberate about bypassing, because we wanted it to be about the music, not about, the struggles of a new band, that the whole cycle of it, it's.
And I mean, I definitely, like, having not had space to make music for many years, or I definitely recognize the privilege, right, of saying, I don't have to take this gig because it's my only opportunity to sing for people. If I want to, I will just plug in the microphone at the end of the workday and I will sing to myself.
Turn on the lights.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I'll turn on the funky lights and I'll just go to town, right? And so now being in that position to be able to be more selective and strategic feels lovely.
Should do?
Yeah.
We should do a reverse space where we're inside facing the window.
Yes.
And the lights are out and just the audience is on the sidewalk.
I'm with it. I love that. I mean,
I'm a
I love
genius.
that. Like, but we talked about that, like fishbowl. I got that window, right?
Oh, we should totally do a fishbowl space.
Yeah, fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
This is how it happens.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just one thing, you latch onto it, it's like, okay,
It's like,
that's the next
cool,
idea.
let's figure out. Because you don't have to get the sign off of many humans.
Yeah.
You just have to have your collaborators say like, "Oh, good idea," and then the two of you can run with it and see what resources you can cull together.
Yeah.
Right. So it puts things into production much faster, right? Because when you're working individually, there is also that like not only the tendency to over-evaluate, but it's like, oh gosh, you have less resources, right? But we're like Captain Planet, right? Like with our powers combined, we can actually really do some cool stuff, right? And our networks combined as well.
And that's part of the curation process for music that I think a lot of folks don't see. I mean, there's a big difference between needing to fill a show on a Wednesday and needing to like curate a sound. And music sounds different depending on the context that it's in,
Yes.
right? Like
Yes.
if you
Absolutely.
start
Yes.
playing deep cuts at the techno club, like it's not gonna hit. So, but I think that that's like a really interesting curation portion of this. And I do want to plug where y'all will be playing next, which we're
Yes.
super lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you.
But we're going to have MindFi at Pickup Party 17.3 on May 16th, Friday,
Hey, West Valley
at West Valley College.
We had such a great time just hanging out at that party last year.
That party was crazy.
So
That was
we're
great.
excited to do this
Yes.
for this issue. Yes.
Very, very
It's going to be
stoked.
so fun.
Yeah, so we're super excited to have you. We'll have you opening up at 7 o'clock. We have Mild Monk playing at 7:30,
Nice.
which will be following up. So that'll also be fun.
Oh, it was a good gig.
But yeah, I mean, super excited to hear about the project. We like to like hard shift gears at the end of these and just like get a sense of kind of your taste, right? Have y'all been reading anything recently that's kind of caught your eye? Are you readers? Yeah.
I got into reading a couple books about investing.
Okay.
So that kind of was the play, probably early fall.
Okay.
So I wish I could tell you the titles of these books, but there was a couple of them, and like I read them, and then I let people borrow them. I said, "Hey, you need to get into like saving your money,
Yeah.
because it's gonna get crazy." So I tried to turn people on to that, but big fan of Colson Whitehead
Okay.
and his books. So trying to get through more of his catalog. Is just great writer. He's written everything from like retellings of the Underground Railroad to zombie books
Yeah.
to books about him playing poker.
Okay.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
That feels like an appropriate sampling of Mark,
Yeah.
right?
Investment in
sorts of stuff.
zombies.
Well, I mean,
Investment in
And
zombies.
zombies.
Thank you. That's
Right.
exactly it.
the duality of life,
duality.
right? For me, I've been, now it's going to be like my own silly duality.
Yeah.
I've been reading a fantastic book by Jasmine Rashid, the Financial Activist Playbook, that lists strategies for individuals to be able to have positive impact on their community, wherever they are at, right? And understanding how we can be more strategic with our activism with the resources that we have and not overburdening ourselves, right? Because I think that for many of us who come from minoritized backgrounds, it's very easy to give and give and give and give and give and give a lot. And sometimes we can lose sight of how to do that in a smart way, right? So that's been a really cool read. Also, I've been reading about dragons, like sexy dragons. So
Palate cleanser
I'm
there,
a
yeah.
Gemini. You know, I have two sides. Those have been the things that I've been reading about right now. Money management and sexy dragons.
I feel like that duality though comes across in the sets also though, like just the variety
music,
of
yeah.
covers that y'all do, from
Yes.
Nirvana to Depeche Mode to all of these different bands. But see, that's why we like
We're
to
genre bending.
I think a lot of it is just some of that really comes from all of my experience as a DJ. You know, I started DJing in downtown San Jose in 1998, and keeping people on a dance floor was always, like the thing you had to figure out.
Yeah.
How do you keep people interested? And how do you do that when your record bag is full of so many different records? You have to figure out how they go together.
Yep.
A lot of people think it's just matching BPMs, beats per minute. But it wasn't just that. It was the feeling of the records. And, I started DJing back when it was like vinyl only. So you really had to know your records. You had to know where the breakdowns were. Like on a lot of records, you can see it because just the texture of the record changes. So you can see a quieter section. There'll be a band on the record that's like reflects light differently, and you can look. It's like, okay, it's going to get quieter there. The feeling is going to change, right? How do you want the people on the dance floor to react? What do you want this to do? You have to get the next record ready. You have to know what that next record is. You have to know what the music is. So you have to know your music, right?
Yeah.
And I took that approach with playing guitar and learning songs. You have to know the songs, right? You have to know what the parts are. And then when you're comfortable with it, you need to be able to know what you can do, what you can change, how you can change. And then where it goes in the set,
But if you have that encyclopedic knowledge of the music at its core, then you can, in the same way that we invite people to hang out for a half an hour before we play our set. And in that time, we are reading the room, right? We are figuring out what we need to deliver for this group of individuals on this day based on the day that they have had. At least that's what I'm doing, right?
Yes.
It's
Wednesdays, you never know.
It's that constant calibration, right? To intuit what people are needing, both spoken and unspoken, so that you can, you're hopping onto that level with them and hopefully picking up some of where they're at so that you can get them to a safe place.
And even Wednesday was like a deliberate pick for us.
Very much so.
We didn't want to do anything early in the week because it's just not a great time. Yesterday, I had a case of the Monday so bad at work yesterday. It's like, man, there's like just no way that I would want to do anything on
And people
Mondays.
are very, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, that's the weekend already.
We work with the arts community. Everybody has their own gigs and stuff that they have to be committed to.
Yeah.
We intentionally said, hey, let's give people something that is reliably at a certain time of the month, at a time that is hopefully relatively accessible. We joke that we open the door at 8, shows at 8:30, we'll get you out the door by 9:15, right? But the reason for that was to make it more accessible, right? So that people felt like they could have dinner and then walk over, enjoy some music, and then go back home and sit and process that music and sit with that and hopefully power them through the rest of their week, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be so precious that it's inaccessible.
Yeah. Well, I think on that note, I'm super excited to hear y'all perform.
Cool.
But tell folks where they can kind of meet you and, see you perform, or where they can follow you on social media or other platforms to kind of learn more about MindFi and what you have going on.
Yeah, definitely. We're on Instagram at MindFi Band. That's probably the best way to keep in touch with us right now. Our shows are the last Wednesday of every month at my salon, which is the Curl Consultant Salon. I'm at 194 Jackson Street in beautiful Japantown.
And anyone can drop in?
Yeah, exactly. They're open to the public, right? Eventually we'll be so big that we can't have everybody in the space, but for as long as we're able to.
We can probably fit 20, 30 people in
I've
there.
had about 30 people in there for different types of shows. Yeah.
And then, once we start doing the fishbowl version, that's going to be unlimited.
Well, and Japantown is such a unique and special part of San Jose that it's also been really beautiful to see, other business people in our area using their spaces really creatively and seeing, like, I'm not the only person making jazz here, for example, right? Minasan now has like a jazz night. You have the Coterie Den. You have Kukui that throws events.
Shows, yes.
Classic Loot. You have all these different entrepreneurs that have really leaned into multi-purpose use of their creative spaces. And I think that we all feed one another, right, in that way, and show like, oh yeah, you don't have to have a gigantic space, right? You see somebody and it's like, oh, well, okay, if they can do that, then we can do that as well, right?
I love it.
Yeah.
That cross-pollination, I think, is really important in the neighborhood.
And before we get too far away from it, I want to go back and answer something that I don't think we answered.
Yeah.
We're trying to get recordings done.
Okay.
We've got original music, so those are the main focus, and a video, I think. So that's really what we're trying to get done, to be able to put out, get on streaming, and be able to share with people. The year is just moving so fast. It's not getting away from us, but it's like, oh, we really need to get some stuff done.
Yeah.
But that's where we're looking.
But I also feel
a couple
like
recordings, video.
But like the
with
ball
our
is moving
shows.
in a way that's like really reassuring.
One of the things that's so great about rehearsing so often is when it comes to show day is just so fun. Show day is great, you know, and Kia's absolutely right. We're feeding off the audience. That's gonna, the reactions that we get, and even how we feel in the day of, or even the days leading into the show. That's gonna inform the tempos of some of the songs, the energy, vocally how Kia is gonna approach phrases. For me, how hard I'm gonna hit the guitar on certain points. There's also a section in the show where I do like a solo piece, so depending on my mood or my headspace at the time, or what I want to convey on the instrument, is gonna help decide what I'm playing in the solo piece. So the set is essentially the same, but the performances are different every time. You'll hear the same songs different ways, and that's something that I love about MindFi, and I love about working with Kia. Is like, we have a background in jazz and improvised music where we are not doing these songs the same way every time, because that's the only way we know how to do them. We can really branch out. And we're always listening to each other. That's really the key. That's really, if you had to find one thing about how this works, why this works, is, we're just always listening.
That wireless mind connection that you have going
that
on.
MindFi.
Listen,
I love it.
Listen, shout out to Naomi Markle, who, one of my best friends. I feel like that's the first time I ever heard those words. But it's a concept that's been like floated around my friend family and group of people for, the better part of a decade, right?
Yeah.
But it is, even when I, was playing in other projects, but it is that sort of special singularity or cohesion moment that you experience when you're in a group with other humans or non-human entities, right? But where you recognize, hey, we are all operating on a certain level to some extent, and there is a connectivity here that we don't get to experience in all spaces, right? And so it's how do we amplify that? And this is just one tool that we have to be able to do it. So we feel super grateful. I know I do.
Well,
Same.
I really appreciate having y'all in
Thank
today.
you for having
thank
us
you.
and being a great interviewer.
Yeah, no, pleasure. So
Well,
check them
it's a
out.
good time.
MindFi Band on Instagram, the last Wednesday of every month in Japantown.
Yeah.
And May 16th, Friday, West Valley College, pickup
8.
party 17.3.
Yeah.
Super excited to have you.
Love it. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Content Magazine podcast. Follow us on social media at Content Mag. Become a member and help us to continue to tell the stories of the South Bay creatives. This episode's music is 408 by Jack Pavlina. Follow him on Spotify and also on his Instagram at Jack Pavlina Music.